because what I'm about to tell you will either permanently change how you operate, or you'll close this video and stay exactly where you are for the next decade. Here's something that will bother you. Right now, someone with half your intelligence is outperforming you. Someone with fewer skills is building more. Someone who started later than you is already further ahead, and it has nothing to do with talent, nothing to do with luck, nothing to do with connections or timing or the circumstances you were born into. It has everything to do with one thing they understand that you don't: focus and discipline at a level most people never reach. Not the motivational poster version, not the wake up at 5 a.m. version that lasts 3 weeks. The real version, the kind that operates even when you're exhausted, even when you've failed, even when nobody is watching and nothing is working. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote something that most people skip over because they're too busy looking for the controversial parts. He wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." Most people read that as advice about choosing allies. Machiavelli meant something deeper. He meant that what you allow into your environment, your attention, your inner circle, reflects the level of your mind. And the level of your mind determines everything else. This video is going to show you 8 lessons that build an unbreakable mind, not through motivation, not through inspiration, through something older and more ruthless than both. Before we go deep, I need you to do one thing. Drop this in the comments right now. My mind answers to no one but me. Say it, mean it, because that declaration is the first act of the discipline we're about to build together. Let's begin. 1. Your focus is leaking and you called it normal. Let me ask you something honest. When did you last sit with one single thought for longer than 3 minutes, without reaching for your phone, without checking something, without letting something else pull you away? Think about that, because if you can't answer that question immediately, your brain is bleeding. Not physically, but psychologically. Your attention is hemorrhaging through 1,000 small cuts every single day. And you've been so conditioned to the bleeding that you've started calling it normal. Here's the brutal truth nobody wants to say out loud. Your problem is not laziness. It's not lack of ambition. It's not that you don't care enough or work hard enough. Your problem is that your most powerful resource, your focused attention, is being stolen from you in pieces so small you never notice the theft. Every notification, every meaningless conversation, every open tab, every scroll that takes just 5 minutes. Each one feels harmless. Together they are destroying your capacity to do anything that actually matters. Machiavelli understood this centuries before the algorithm existed. He wrote, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command." And the first thing that must be commanded is not other people. It is your own attention. Your brain cannot serve 10 masters at once. When you split your focus across 12 different inputs, you are not operating at 100% divided by 12. You are operating at a fraction of a fraction, and the compounding cost of that is invisible until it becomes catastrophic. Think about the last time you worked on something genuinely important. Really think about it. How long before something interrupted you? How long before you interrupted yourself? Research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes for the human brain to return to deep focus after an interruption. 23 minutes. And most people are interrupting themselves every 7. Do that math. It's ugly. Here's what this looks like in real life. There's a version of you that sits down to work on something that could change your life. A project, a skill, a decision that actually matters. And within 4 minutes, you've checked a notification, responded to something unimportant, lost the thread, and convinced yourself you'll get back to it later. Later becomes never. Never becomes a year. A year becomes a pattern. A pattern becomes a life you didn't choose. That version of you is not lazy. That version of you is bleeding out and doesn't know it. Now, here's what the other version looks like. The person who treats their attention like a fortress gate. Who decides before they sit down what gets in and what stays out? who understands that saying yes to distraction is saying no to the thing that actually matters. They don't produce more hours. They produce more real work inside the hours they have. And over time, the gap between them and everyone else becomes impossible to close. Machiavelli wrote, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." Replace the word titles with your goals. Your goals don't become real because you have them. They become real because you honor them with your full, protected, undivided attention. You cannot build an empire with a mind that cannot hold one thought for longer than 90 seconds. The bleeding stops when you decide it stops. Not tomorrow. Now. 2. Build the environment. The discipline builds itself. Here's the lie you've been told your whole life. Discipline is about willpower. Push harder, want it more, grit your teeth, and force yourself through. The people who succeed are just tougher than you. Right? Wrong. That is one of the most damaging myths ever sold to ambitious people. And it's damaging not because it's cruel, but because it sounds true. It sounds noble. And it fails almost everyone who tries to live by it. Here's what's actually happening. Willpower is a finite resource. Every decision you make throughout the day, every moment you resist an impulse, every time you choose the harder path over the easier one, depletes it. By the afternoon, most people are running on empty, and then they wonder why their discipline collapses exactly when they need it most. The people you admire for their discipline, they're not using more willpower than you. They are using less, because they understood something most people never discover. Discipline is architecture. Machiavelli never wasted energy fighting human nature. He studied it. He worked with it. He once wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." And what the wise man does first is design the environment so that the right action becomes the easiest action. When your environment is designed correctly, discipline stops being a battle. It becomes the path of least resistance. You don't have to fight yourself to do the right thing, because the wrong thing has been made harder to reach. Let me make this concrete. Two people want to build a reading habit. Person one keeps their phone on the bedside table and the book across the room. Person two puts the book on the bedside table and charges their phone in another room. Both have the same intention, same goal, same desire. But person two has built an environment where the good behavior is closer and the bad behavior requires extra steps. Guess who builds the habit? It's not about character. It's about friction. You increase friction for the things that drain you. You decrease friction for the things that build you. This is not a productivity trick. This is psychological architecture, and it works not because it bypasses your weaknesses, but because it acknowledges them. There are 3 layers to this. First, eliminate access. If you cannot reach the distraction in 10 seconds, you will not reach for it in a moment of weakness. Remove the app, close the tab, put the phone in another room. Physical distance creates psychological distance. Second, create pre-commitment. Announce the deadline before you're ready. Pay for the class before you feel motivated. Set up accountability before you feel like you need it. You're not relying on future you to make the right decision. You're making the decision now when you're clear and removing the option to change it later when you're weak. Third, design your entry ritual. The most focused people in the world don't wait to feel ready. They have a ritual that signals to their brain, this is work time now. Same chair, same music or silence, same sequence of actions. Over time, the ritual becomes the on switch. Machiavelli understood that the prince who prepares before the storm never scrambles during it. Preparation is not weakness. Preparation is dominance over your future self. Stop trying to be more disciplined. Start building a life where discipline is the path of least resistance. Drop this in the comments right now. I don't fight my nature, I design around it. 3. The people around you are either building you or breaking you. Most people think the enemy of focus is distraction. They're partially right. But there's a deeper enemy, one that's quieter, more personal, and far more destructive because it comes dressed as obligation, friendship, and responsibility. Your energy is being drained by people, not just by phones and notifications. And if you don't address that, nothing else works. Let me be direct about something. The people in your life right now can be divided into 3 categories, not based on how much you love them, not based on history or loyalty or how long you've known them, based on one thing only: what happens to your energy after you spend time with them. There are people who leave you energized. After a conversation with them, you feel clearer, more motivated, like the world makes more sense. These people are rare. They are worth protecting. There are people who are neutral. The interaction costs something, but gives something back. A fair exchange. These are most people. And then there are the ones who drain you. You know exactly who I'm talking about. After every interaction, you feel heavier, not because anything bad was said, not because of conflict or drama, just depleted, like something invisible was taken from you that you can't quite name. Machiavelli wrote, "He who has not first laid his foundations may be able with great ability to lay them afterwards, but they will be laid with trouble to the architect and danger to the building." Your energy is the foundation. Every time you let the wrong people access it without limit, you are building on sand. This is not about becoming cold. This is not about cutting everyone off or treating relationships like transactions. This is about understanding that your focused attention, your creative capacity, your ability to do the work that matters, is not unlimited. Every hour you spend managing someone else's chaos is an hour not spent building your own clarity. So what do you actually do? You start protecting access, not aggressively, not with walls, but with intention. You stop being automatically available. You stop answering immediately just because someone reached out. You stop making yourself the default problem solver for everyone who hasn't bothered to solve their own problems first. Here's the counterintuitive part. The people who genuinely value you will respect this. The people who don't will reveal themselves immediately. And that information is priceless. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Machiavelli would add, "And then guard that power like it is the most valuable territory you own." Because it is. Think about the most effective people you know, the ones who actually build things, who actually make progress, who seem to have more hours in the day than everyone else. Are they the most available? Are they the ones who respond to everyone immediately? Are they the ones who let other people's urgency become their emergency? No. They are the ones who have quietly decided what gets access to them and what doesn't. And they do not apologize for that decision. Your energy is not just a personal resource. It is the raw material of everything you want to build. Every project, every relationship that matters, every version of yourself you're trying to become. When you let it bleed out through 1,000 small obligations, you arrive at the important moments empty. You cannot focus on building your empire while bleeding out from 1,000 small obligations. Protect the territory. Start now. 4. Forget motivation. Build something that doesn't need it. Let me tell you something about motivation that nobody in the self-improvement world wants to admit. Motivation is unreliable. It's emotional. It shows up uninvited and disappears without warning. It peaks on Sunday night when you're planning the week and vanishes by Tuesday morning when the real work needs to happen. And yet an entire industry has been built on selling you more of it. More inspiration, more hype, more energy, more reasons to believe that this time will be different. It won't be. Not if motivation is what you're depending on. Here's what the people who actually build things understand. The most disciplined people in the world don't feel more motivated than you. On most days, they feel exactly as unmotivated as you do. The difference is that their actions have stopped depending on their feelings. They have built something that runs without motivation, and that something is identity. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. What people see of you, over time, is not your intentions, not your motivation, not how inspired you felt on your best days. They see the pattern, the consistency, the evidence of who you actually are beneath the feeling. And here's the shift that changes everything. Stop asking yourself, do I feel motivated to do this today? Start asking, is this what a person like me does? Not motivation as the engine, identity as the engine. There is a profound psychological difference between those two questions. One makes your action dependent on your emotional state. The other makes your action an expression of who you've decided to be. And identity is far more stable than emotion. Let me walk you through how this actually works. Step 1. Reframe the language. Not, I need to work on this, but I am someone who works on this. Not, I should go to the gym, but I am someone who trains. The words sound small. The psychological impact is not small. Language shapes self-perception. Self-perception drives behavior. Step 2. Build a minimum standard. This is the thing you do on your worst day, not your best day. Your worst day. When you're sick, exhausted, demoralized, and every part of you wants to quit. What is the smallest possible action that still counts? 10 minutes, 1 page, 1 set. It doesn't need to produce results. It needs to protect identity. Because the moment you break the chain completely, the story you tell yourself about who you are begins to collapse. Step 3. Measure consistency, not intensity. Doing something for 1 hour every day for a year will produce results that doing 12 hours in a single burst every few months never will. Compound growth doesn't care about your peak performance. It cares about your floor. How low does your worst day go? That is the number that matters. Machiavelli was ruthless about one thing above all others. Not his enemies, not his rivals. He was ruthless about the quality and consistency of his own thinking. Even in exile, even in defeat, even while being tortured and stripped of everything, he continued to write. Not because he felt inspired, because he was someone who wrote. That is identity-based discipline. That is what runs without fuel. Fortune favors the disciplined, not the inspired. Inspiration is a gift. Some days it shows up. Most days it doesn't. Discipline is a structure. It shows up because you built it to show up, not because you feel like it. Write this in the comments. I don't need motivation. I have identity. 5. Not every opinion deserves space in your head. Here's something nobody tells you when they talk about focus. You can do everything right. You can protect your energy. You can build the architecture. You can commit to the identity. And then one comment, one criticism, one look from the wrong person, one voice in a room full of voices can undo hours of work in your head because you care too much about the wrong things. And before you think this is about becoming cold or indifferent, stop, because that's not what I'm saying. The people who completely stop caring, stop improving too. Caring about quality, about results, about the people who actually matter to you, that's essential. Don't kill that. What needs to die is something else. It's the compulsive need to monitor how you're perceived by people who have no real stake in your life. The invisible audience you're performing for every time you make a decision. The voice in your head that asks, but what will they think? Before you take any meaningful risk. That voice is the real distraction. Not your phone, not your environment. That voice. Machiavelli wrote, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Most people spend their entire lives managing appearances for an audience that isn't paying close attention. They shrink their ambitions to fit what's socially comfortable. They adjust their decisions to avoid judgment from people who will forget about them by next week. And their focus, their real focus, never lands on what they're actually trying to build. Here's the distinction that matters. There are two types of not caring. The first type is apathy. You stop caring about quality, about growth, about the people who deserve your investment. This is not strength. This is collapse. The person who doesn't care about anything doesn't build anything. The second type is strategic detachment. You care deeply about the outcome, but you are not emotionally controlled by the reaction of people who have no real information about your situation, your goals, or your journey. You hear the noise, you filter it, you take what's useful and you release what isn't, and you keep moving. That second type is what Machiavelli practiced. He absorbed brutal criticism, political exile, personal failure. He didn't pretend it didn't hurt, but he didn't let it become the driver. His attention stayed on the work, not on managing the impression. Think about the last time you made a decision based not on what was right for you, but on what you imagined people would think. How much of your focus in that moment was on the actual decision? And how much was on the audience? That ratio is costing you more than you know. Here's what strategic detachment feels like in practice. You ship the work before it's perfect, because waiting for perfect is just fear in a formal outfit. You say what you actually think in the room, even when the room disagrees. You make the decision that serves your long-term goal, even when the short-term optics are uncomfortable. And when the criticism comes, and it always comes, you hold it up, look at it clearly, take what's accurate, and put down what isn't. A prince who adjusts his direction every time someone voices an opinion never reaches his destination. He just circles endlessly, burning fuel, going nowhere. Stop living in the mirror. Start living in the direction you're moving. 6. Time is a weapon. Most people throw it away. This is the lesson that separates the people who build something real from the people who almost did. Not talent, not resources, not intelligence, not timing. The single most differentiating factor between the person who reaches the level they're capable of and the person who doesn't is this: the ability to stay committed to a long-term vision while tolerating short-term discomfort, uncertainty, and invisibility. That sounds simple. It is not simple, because the entire architecture of modern life is designed to destroy long-game thinking. Every platform is built for immediate feedback. Every app is engineered for instant gratification. Every metric you're surrounded by is a short-term metric. Views, likes, sales this week, results this month. And when those numbers don't move fast enough, most people conclude that what they're doing isn't working, and they quit, exactly before the compound effect would have shown up. Machiavelli was writing while imprisoned, while exiled, while stripped of everything he had spent his life building. He was not writing for immediate results. He was writing for permanence. He wrote, "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by strategy and patience." That sentence is not about military campaigns. It's about understanding that time is a weapon, and most people throw it away. Here's the math that breaks most people psychologically. 1% better every day for a year equals 37 times better by the end of that year. 37 times, but 1% better every day looks like nothing on day 12. It looks like nothing on day 40. It looks like slow, unremarkable progress that the impatient mind cannot tolerate. The impatient mind needs to see the result of the effort immediately. And when it doesn't, it labels the effort as failure. This is not failure. This is how compounding works. The person who understands this operates differently. They are not checking for results every week. They are checking for process. They are asking not, "Is this working yet?" but "Am I still doing the work correctly?" Because they trust that correct work, sustained over time, produces undeniable results. And they are willing to be invisible, to be doubted, to be overlooked for exactly as long as that takes. Let me paint you two pictures. Person A starts something. They work hard for 90 days. They don't see the results they expected. People around them question whether it's worth continuing. They start to feel embarrassed by the slow progress. They pivot. They start something new. The cycle repeats. 3 years later, they have 10 unfinished things, and a story about bad timing. Person B starts the same thing. They also don't see results at 90 days. They also feel the doubt, but they have made a decision in advance. They will not evaluate results at 90 days. They will evaluate process at 90 days and results at 3 years. So they keep going. At 18 months, the compound effect starts showing up. At 3 years, the gap between them and person A cannot be closed. Same starting point, same initial conditions. The only variable was time horizon. Machiavelli didn't just understand strategy. He understood patience as a form of psychological dominance. The prince who can wait longer than his opponent has already won. Here's what I want you to ask yourself right now. What is something in your life where you have quit right before the compound effect would have arrived? What would be different today if you had stayed? Drop this in the comments. I play the long game. I always win eventually. 7. Getting broken is not failure. Refusing to get up is I need to say something that most people in this space won't say. You are going to fail. Significantly, not the small, manageable setbacks that make for clean motivational stories. Real failure. The kind that embarrasses you. The kind that costs you something you can't easily replace. The kind that makes you question whether you misread yourself entirely. And here's the thing about that. Good. Not because suffering is noble, not because pain is a virtue in itself, but because the version of you that has never been genuinely tested does not yet know what it's actually made of. It only knows what it thinks it's made of. And those are completely different things. Machiavelli wrote, "Men rise from one ambition to another. First, they seek to secure themselves against attack, and then they attack others." Read that again. The first move is securing yourself against attack. Not winning, not advancing. Securing yourself. And you cannot secure yourself against attacks you have never experienced. Every real failure is a live test of your psychology. It shows you exactly where your thinking was wrong, exactly where your preparation was insufficient, exactly where your identity was fragile rather than solid. And that information, paid for in real cost, is more valuable than any advice you'll ever receive. The problem is not failure. The problem is how most people process failure. The default processing is emotional and protective. You feel the pain. You try to make it stop as quickly as possible. You build a story that minimizes your responsibility. You avoid looking directly at what went wrong, because looking directly at it means confronting something uncomfortable about yourself. And then, because you never examined it clearly, you repeat it in a slightly different form next time. Here's a different way to process it. After a significant failure, sit with 3 questions, not while the emotion is still hot. After. When you can think with some clarity, what was inside my control that contributed to this? Not what went wrong in general. What specifically did I do or fail to do that made this more likely? That question requires honesty that most people avoid. Where did I mistake a weakness for a strength? This is the most uncomfortable one, because our greatest failures often come not from our known weaknesses, but from blind spots we didn't know we had. Areas where we thought we were capable and turned out to be exposed. If this exact situation appeared again, what would I do differently? Not vaguely differently, specifically, concretely. What is the one thing that would change the outcome? Those 3 questions transform failure from a wound into data. And data builds better decisions. Machiavelli himself was arrested, tortured, and exiled from the city he had served his entire career. By every conventional measure, that was catastrophic failure. What did he do with it? He sat with it. He analyzed it. He extracted every insight it contained. And he wrote one of the most influential books in human history. The failure didn't break him. He broke the failure down until it became useful. He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior, not conquering your enemies, not conquering your circumstances, conquering your own reflexive response to pain. That is the discipline that makes you truly unbreakable. not the absence of breaking, the ability to use the breaking as material. You are being built by everything that tries to destroy you. The only question is whether you're paying attention. 8. Command yourself before you try to command anything else. Everything we have covered in this video leads here, because without this, none of it holds. You can know how to protect your focus. You can build the architecture of discipline. You can guard your energy and manage your identity, and think in decades rather than weeks. You can process failure with precision. But if the inside of your mind is a war zone, all of that knowledge will collapse the moment real pressure arrives. And real pressure always arrives. This is the lesson Machiavelli placed at the foundation of everything he wrote about power. Not strategy, not alliances, not positioning, the internal command. The ability to govern the territory of your own mind the way a sovereign governs a kingdom. With structure, with authority, with clarity about what is allowed inside and what is not. Most people experience their own mind as something that happens to them. Thoughts appear and they follow them. Emotions surface and they obey them. Fear speaks and they retreat. Anxiety arrives and they change plans. They are not governing their mind is governing them. And a mind that governs you is a vulnerability that everything else can exploit. Here's what mental sovereignty actually means. It does not mean you feel nothing. It does not mean you become cold, sealed off, robotically indifferent. It means that you observe what you feel rather than becoming it. You notice fear without letting fear make the decision. You notice frustration without letting frustration determine your response. You are present to your emotional experience without being controlled by it. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel." The world sees the surface. The person who controls the surface while managing the depth is the person who controls the room. Here are 3 practices that build this. The first is the pause. Before any significant response, especially under pressure, you create a deliberate gap. Not hesitation, a choice. A conscious moment between the stimulus and your response. Even 5 seconds, even 3 breaths. In that gap lives your sovereignty. In that gap, you are choosing rather than reacting. The second is the observer practice. When something triggers a strong emotional response, you practice a small mental step backward. You don't suppress it. You watch it. There is anger here. There is fear here. There is the urge to defend myself here. Naming it creates distance. Distance creates choice. Choice is power. The third is pre-mortem thinking. Before you begin anything important, you sit down and imagine it going wrong. Every way it could go wrong. Not to catastrophize, to prepare. The mind that has already rehearsed adversity is not shocked by adversity when it arrives, and a mind that is not shocked can respond rather than react. Together, these 3 practices don't make you invulnerable, they make you governable. By yourself, which is the only governance that matters. Think about the 2 people who received the same piece of bad news on the same day. Same information, same circumstances. One of them spirals. They lose sleep. They lose focus. Their decisions in the days that follow are colored by the emotional residue of that moment. The other person processes it, finds the next step, continues. Not because they felt nothing, because they govern what happens after they feel it. Same event, completely different outcomes. Not because of talent or resources, because of who is in command of the inner territory. Machiavelli's deepest teaching was not about ruling others. It was this: the person who commands themselves does not need to fight to command anything else. It arrives, naturally, inevitably. Rule the silence inside you. Everything else follows. Drop this in the comments. I am the sovereign of my own mind. You walked into this video as one person. You're walking out as someone who can no longer pretend they don't know. You now know that your brain is bleeding through distraction, and that the bleeding stops by decision, not by time. You now know that discipline is not willpower. It is architecture built around your nature, not against it. You now know that your energy is territory, and unguarded territory gets taken. You now know that identity outlasts motivation, and the person who builds from identity cannot be stopped by a bad day. You now know that strategic detachment is not coldness. It is focus with armor. You now know that the long game is not patience for its own sake. It is the most ruthless competitive advantage available to anyone willing to use it. You now know that failure is not the enemy. Unexplored failure is. And you now know that the sovereignty of your inner world is the foundation on which everything else is built. The person who started this video was waiting for the right conditions to begin. The person finishing it understands there are no right conditions. There is only the decision. Machiavelli said it, and it has not stopped being true. He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. You now have 8 ways to start that conquest today. If this video reached something real in you, do 3 things. Like it so it reaches the person who needs this but hasn't found it yet. Share it with someone you know who is capable of more but hasn't unlocked it. And subscribe, because every video on this channel goes deeper, cuts sharper, and does not make room for comfort over truth. And one final time, in the comments, I am the sovereign of my own mind.